Hello, good people of YouTube. Mountbatten here, and today, for your weekly top 5 video, we are going over my top 5 rare premium ships. But what is a rare premium ship? Well, you see, Wargaming at times decides that they are going to go ahead and remove a ship from sale for one reason or another, usually because the ship is doing a little bit too well in terms of performance. And these are ships that you, of course, can't just go into the armory or the premium shop and buy anymore. Usually you have to get lucky in some type of events like the Santa Container event, or of course the anniversary event where super containers are available, or of course the special Santa containers are available to be purchased or earned through those events. So again, it's essentially any ship you can't go into the shop and just buy right now. I'm also not including any of the Black Friday ships in this video because those ships are of course available during the Black Friday event for outright purchase every year. So while they might be removed, in my opinion, of course, they aren't removed, right? You can still get them during that event outright. Don't have to gamble for them. So none of those ships will be on this list. But let's go ahead and get started with number 5, which is the Tier 5 Italian battleship, the Julius Caesar. Now, the Julius Caesar is one of, simply put, the best battleships in the game at the moment. Of course, we have the upcoming low-tier rework. We'll see exactly what that does in terms of the Julius Caesar's performance, but until then, it is still an exceptionally strong Tier 5 Italian battleship. For the simple reason that there's not really a lot terrible about the Julius Caesar. Her 320mm main battery guns are pretty dang accurate for a Tier 5 battleship. Her maneuverability is pretty dang good for a Tier 5 battleship. Her armor is pretty dang good for a Tier 5 battleship. And her HP is pretty dang good for a Tier 5 battleship. You see, when it comes to mid-tier battleships, Tier 5 to 6, there's typically, one or two categories where most Tier 5 battleships are, pretty good or okay in, but then the rest, it's typically quite terrible. They either have terrible armor, the ship's exceptionally slow, or it's sluggish, or the main battery guns are incredibly inaccurate, so forth and so on. What makes the Caesar so good is that, well, in just about every aspect, the Julius Caesar is just good. So when you have all these categories of being good in regards to Julius Caesar, that makes her a standout amongst other Tier 5 battleships. So you have a pretty darn maneuverable Tier 5 battleship with good guns and good armor, good concealment and all that jazz. It's just going to, of course, do excellent. It's actually performed so well that Wargaming a few years ago tried to kick the thing up to Tier 6, but of course the Julius Caesar owners did not appreciate that too much, so Wargaming decided to leave it at Tier 5 instead of trying to bump it up to Tier 6 and balance it there, and that's where we got the Novorossiysk from, which is the Tier 6 version of the Julius Caesar, which is actually what happened to the thing after World War II. The ship was given to the Soviet Union as a prize at the end of the war for reparations. They renamed her the Novorossiysk, and she mysteriously sunk at port. I'm sure no Italians were involved in that. But yeah, if you do manage to get the Julius Caesar from a super container, Santa container, or however you manage to acquire it, you have one hell of a ship. And I'm sure even after the low tier rework, the ship is still probably going to be one of the best Tier 5 premiums in the game. Or really just one of the best Tier 5 ships in the game, hands down. It's a great ship. I'm very glad I got her in a super container a couple of years ago, because it is a blast to play, especially if you have Sansonetti. By all means, throw him on Julius Caesar, and you're going to have a fantastic time. Alright, up next we have the Tier 8 Premium Soviet light cruiser, the Kutuzov, the ship that Wargaming has tried to reintroduce into the game, 3 or 4 times now? We have... Oh man, we have people complain about the amount of Fletchers we have in game, the amount of Kutuzov clones we have in game. It's not far behind the Fletchers at this point. So the Kutuzov, this is an old ship, man. So this ship was around back in the days of 2016, back when stealth firing was still a thing. So what the Kutuzov could essentially do back, well, not what it essentially could do, what it could do back in the day is thanks to the extreme long range of its main battery guns, combined with the old stealth firing mechanics, the Kutuzov could literally just sit in the back of the map and burn things down, and in a lot of cases simply not get detected without having to use a smoke screen. What's really funny is back when the forums are still up, you could go back on the forums and find conversations about how the stealth, the removal of the stealth firing mechanic was going to like murder the Kutuzov and such, even though it didn't. Because the ship, even after that, was still insanely good. And it still is insanely good in today's World of Warships. So, while yes, the stealth firing mechanics got removed, the ship still has a smoke screen that it can utilize to, sit in the smoke and use its very comfortable Soviet ballistics on her 152 millimeter main battery guns to her advantage. If you don't know, the Soviet ballistics are among the best in the game. The shells are, well, TLDR, the shells are really comfy to use at range instead of getting into our conversation about shell mechanics and stuff. So, unlike the American shells, like the American light cruiser shells, that it feels like it takes 3 business days to get to where they're going, the Soviet shells get there a lot faster, their arcs tend to be a lot flatter, and that's, of course, no exception here in the Kutuzov. So you can sit in the back and just burn things down so easily with the Kutuzov. And again, it's got smoke, you can sit in that, burn stuff down, and if you can manage to, nuzzle it next to an island, kind of cheat it to where you remain undetected, you can burn stuff down so easily. It's just a great little barbecue ship. Hence why it was, of course, removed, as that is quite frustrating to try and play against. The HE is, again, what you'll be, using in most cases, but the AP is also really good, too, because, again, Soviet shells. If something does show you broadside, the guns are more than accurate enough, and again, the ballistics are definitely more than comfortable enough to where you could chunk, battleships in the bow or the stern or the superstructure and just start ripping swaths of HP off of their ship with your AP. And man, if some poor cruiser shows you broadside, some fellow light cruiser, you can really nuke him with that as well. On top of the fact that the comfy shell ballistics makes it more than reasonable enough to absolutely bully DDs. Now, I'm not saying you do it from the maximum range of the Kutuzov, but you can very much from most reasonable engagement ranges absolutely bully destroyers with those comfy shell arcs and the comfy ballistics of the shells. To give us an idea of how fast these shells are going, they're going at 950 meters a second, which is a solid, when we see like 875, 850 meters a second on most shells, we're like, dang, that's pretty good ballistics. Well, that's pretty good initial velocity. 950, getting close to 1,000 meters a second. And keep in mind, again, with the parameters of the Soviet shells, it maintains that speed a whole hell of a lot better than other guns. So yeah, the ship's crazy good. We most recently have the I can't remember the name of it. It's a coal ship in the army right now. It's AP only, and it's like, well, still Soviet AP, right? So you have that version in the army right now. There is a Pan-Asian version. Again, the name's escaping me off the top of my head right now. So yeah, it's a great ship. If you manage to somehow get it, like the Julius Caesar, you have a great ship, especially if you like burning, well, really anything down at range. So consider yourself lucky if you manage to pick up the Kutuzov. Alright, going on our way down now from number 4 to number 3, we have the Tier 8 Premium Soviet battleship, the Lenin. The Lenin is the unholy child of the Vladivostok and the Nelson. You get the Soviet 16-inch guns in the Nelson turret configuration with all the goods of both, basically. Well, you don't get the super heal of the Nelson, but you get the turret configuration, which is a really great plus for a Soviet battleship, because very much like the rest of the Soviet battleships, the Lenin is very good at sitting angled in to the enemy and just not caring about their AP shells at all, because, well, just like the other Soviet battleships, she has great armor from a bowman perspective. Now, the 16-inch guns, being in that, that all 4 of this other superstructure configuration, of course, allows you to get them on target a lot more often than you normally would with, again, something like the Vladivostok. We have that third turret all the way in the back. So that means you are delivering 9 16-inch Soviet AP shells to enemy ships a lot more than you would with the Vladivostok, where you would typically be limited to the 6 of the forward 2 turrets. And that in and of itself is a great thing to have with the Lenin. Now, the Lenin is one of the most feared tier 8 battleships. Anytime anything competitive comes out at tier 8, it's locked into a small format tier 8 mode, the Lenins pop up out of the woodwork. That is how good this ship is. Again, Soviet buy 16-inch guns in all forward superstructure configuration, with again great armor for sitting bow and angled to the enemy team. It's a real pain in the neck to try and kill this thing when you're in a competitive setting, like clan battles, ranked or whatever. And man, the amount of times I've removed a fellow tier 8 battleships, just half of their HP bar in a single salvo is incredibly high with the Lenin. It's a really comfy ship to play again thanks to that turret setup. She's also surprisingly maneuverable. She does take off pretty well, and it feels like she's a little bit more wiggly than the other Soviet battleships, so she's got that going for her. Her downsides are that she doesn't really have the best AA in the world, and very much like the other Soviet battleships, if you do manage to find her broadside, her flat broadside, she is most vulnerable there. And she does, if you've noticed, a lot more of the ship stands up out of the water than you do with the other Soviet battleships. Most of the other Soviet battleships sit quite low in the waterline. With the Lenin, you got a little bit more there to see, and very much so to Citadel if you do manage to, find someone on your side. But like most Soviet large ships, when you find an island to hug up next to, or you just get into a position where you get your team over there on the flank, no one's flanking you just yet. You sit there, bow in, and again just tank for days with the Lenin. If you have Kutuzov, you can throw him on top of the Lenin as well, and now you get the bonus heal and the bonus damage con to your Lenin when you get below 10% HP, again making your ship that much tankier and allowing you to survive for that much longer. So she's a great ship. She is, well, I don't think they've auctioned her off before. They've auctioned off the Nelson before. That's what I'm thinking about at the moment. Again, got to get lucky in Santa containers, super containers, in order to acquire the Lenin. But yet again, if you do, like all your tier 8 competitive modes, you're probably going to be stuck in this thing because it will carry you through that. I've used Lenin to get me through tier 8 ranked more than a few times, along with, of course, ships like the Massachusetts. But besides the Massachusetts, the Lenin is my other go-to ship when it comes time for tier 8 ranked. So yet again, if you get one, consider yourself very lucky. All right, going on down now to number 2. We have the tier 10 British premium heavy cruiser, the Defence. Now, the Defence is a unique ship on this list because there is quite literally no way at all for you to get to acquire the Defence at this moment. Why? You see, the Defence was part of the Kitakami event, the Salvage for Victory event, where you had to throw pretty much all your resources at the game in order to try and get the Kitakami. The Defence was, I believe, the section, either 1 or 2 sections right before you got to the Kitakami. It was the last ship that you could get out of the event. And Wargaming stated there is no way possible to acquire the Defence or any other ships in the Salvage for Victory event, at least for the next 2 years. So you literally have no way to get this ship right now. But when it does return, it's a pretty fun little ship. It's a ship that I wasn't really expecting to enjoy all that much because it's just so weird. She's a cruiser with 6 14-inch guns. She essentially has the twin turrets from the King George V class bolted to her decks. And again, a configuration similar to what you would find on the Nelson and the Lenin. But 14-inch guns on a cruiser are, of course, quite large. Now, of course, we have larger guns on cruisers nowadays. We have the Siegfried with her 15-inch guns, and then, of course, the Vyazma with her 16-inch guns. But, 14-inch guns on a cruiser are still pretty large. She also has a 10.1 kilometer detection range if you build her for it, which means it's not all that difficult to get, fairly close to the enemy team, find their broadsides, and then shove 6 14-inch shells into their citadel. Which, while yes, they are 14-inch shells and may not be that large by battleship standards at tier 10, but having 6 of them find their way into your citadel is not an enjoyable experience for even most tier 10 ships, right? So that's a pretty fun way to play her. Now, of course, her armor leaves her to be quite frail. She does not get an improved hull like so many other high-tier British ships, but she does get the British Destroyer smokescreen, that short burst smoke that can, get you out of a bad situation quite often. It's definitely long enough for you to, in most cases, run away from whatever it is that is spotting you. You can, kind of sneak a shot or two in there as well, depending upon, adrenaline rush and all that stuff. But it's fairly an interesting ship to play. Oh, and you get to the torpedo turning mechanics. You get 4 torpedo tubes per side. They are all technically part of one rack, but they are, of course, the whole mounted torpedoes. So those are quite usable in a situation, when you get into a little close quarters action. They have a 10-kilometer range, which is just slightly less than what you'll get out of a maximum stealth build with the defense. So, essentially, if it's in your visual range, or if it's spotting you, I should say, it is within torpedo range. So it's an interesting ship, to say the least, and it's pretty fun when you can, again, get into situations where you can sneak around to the side of the enemy team and start pumping your, 14-inch shells into their broadsides. It's a pretty fun little ship. You can also fall back on using the HE to farm, because you have a 44% fire chance on these 14-inch guns. You get 6 of them, again, with a great degree of accuracy as well. So, if you're getting bow tanked or whatever, swap over to HE, do the British thing, and burn them down. So it's a really fun little ship, and it's interesting. It will be, I should say, interesting to see how they decide to reintroduce her into the game. I believe, after this Christmas, we got one more year, then she should be coming back in some way, shape, or form. And now we arrive at our number 1 slot, occupied by the Tier 9 Premium Japanese battleship, the Musashi. But some of y'all thought this was going to be the Kitakami, huh? Nah, it's the Musashi. The Musashi and I have not the best history together. I've never been the Musashi's biggest fan, simply because of, in order to be assured of acquiring her nowadays, you usually have to drop an ungodly amount of money on the game. We're talking, high 3 digits, getting into the 4 digits in order to acquire this ship. Yet again, I sat in a Discord call and watched someone drop $2,000 on the Santa Container event in order to get a Musashi. And there are plenty of players that spend a lot more in the game to get this ship. Paying that much for a digital item is a little bit insane, no matter how good it is. But, yeah. But taking that out of consideration, if you do manage to get the Musashi, again, Super Container, Santa Container, or whatever, it is an amazing Tier 9 premium battleship. You get the Yamato's guns, those 18.1-inch guns that can overmatch 32 millimeters of armor, down at Tier 9, with a Tier 9 premium economy to boot, which is a recipe for absolutely printing credits. Now, the guns are nowhere near as accurate as the Yamis, and you cannot get the unique upgrade to, of course, get that additional boost to your dispersion. But since you don't have to mount the unique upgrade, you can take the reload module in the last slot instead, and have a much quicker reload time than your standard Yamato player does. So that kind of makes up for the lack of accuracy there. But the ship does also have her early war configuration in terms of her AA guns and secondary guns, which means she has Tier 5 AA at Tier 9. And pretty much every CV player knows that if there's Musashi on the enemy team, that's the one you want to go after, because, again, Tier 5 AA and Tier 9 matchmaking. So you're basically a damage pinata for most CVs. And keep in mind, too, that the Musashi does have to fight Super CVs as well, since it is a Tier 9 ship. So you're literally fighting jets in some cases with your very, very early World War II era AA. So that does lead to some frustration nowadays too. And again, this is a ship that some spend thousands of dollars on to get. I would not want to pay that much to fight Super CVs with basically literally no AA by Tier 9 standards, right? So there's that. But, of course, when there are no CVs around, or the CV leaves you alone, and you're able to just do your thing, of course, delivering 18.1-inch shells to the broadsides of, considering, this thing can see Tier 7 ships, it is quite the good damage dealer. And, of course, it's the Gammy. It's got a properly tough hull for long-range engagements and such. So it's a really nice ship, a really lovely ship if you do get lucky enough and get her, again, in a container or something that you've earned or bought at either, in whatever event it is that you manage to acquire the ship. it's a pretty good ship if you do get it that way. She does come back to the auction from time to time. I'm guessing when Wargaming just used to print some money over a weekend. And again, just take a look at what some of the bids are. If you check out the Warship Sphere, the Discord and such, and see what some people are throwing at the game trying to get the Musashi. It is truly ridiculous. But she is an excellent Tier 9 premium battleship, and yet again, if you do manage to acquire her, you definitely have one of the best premiums in the game, hands down. So guys, those are my top 5 rare premium ships. Let me know in the comments down below, what are your top 5 rare premium ships, and which one of these would you like to acquire in the future? Maybe RNG will bless you. Let us know all that and more in the comments down below. Hope you guys have a great Monday and a great rest of your week. Hope to catch you guys in the next one.